ICG 653 Universal, ICG 653 Dedicated and ICG 623. General description of glands. The ICG 653 Universal cable gland comprises 6 major components, these being the back nut, middle nut, reversible armour clamping ring or RAC, armour spigot, compound pot and entry component complete with deluge seal. This cable gland accommodates all types of elastomer and plastic insulated cable, incorporating all types of armour, the most common being single wire armour W and wire braid X. The cable gland is specifically designed for use with cables which are not effectively filled. The ICG 653 dedicated armour cable gland comprises 6 major components similar to the ICG 653 universal cable gland, the exception being that instead of a reversible armour clamping ring, the cable gland is fitted with individual armour rings to suit each individual armour type or braid. The ICG 623 comprises 6 major components. These are the back nut, rear compression spigot, middle nut incorporating seal, compound spigot, compound pot and entry component. This type of gland is specifically designed for use with non-armoured elastomer and plastic insulated cables. Assembly instructions are supplied with each cable gland. Please refer to these for further instructions on cable preparation and installation. Cable preparation, ICG 653 Universal, ICG 653 Dedicated Armour and ICG 623. Allow sufficient length of cable to enable termination of the conductors into the junction box. Strip back and remove the required amount of cable sheath and armour or braid to enable connection to the terminals. Remove the inner sheath level with the armour or braid to expose the conductors. Ensure all cable fillers are removed, meaning plastic tapes, strings and so on. Remove a further 20 mm of outer cable sheath for cable glands from sizes OS to A, 25 mm on sizes B to C2, and 32 mm for sizes D to F. The process of exposing the armour isn't required for the ICG 623 cable gland, as this cable gland is only suitable for use with non-armoured cables. Cable gland installation. ICG 653 Universal, ICG 653 Dedicated and ICG 623. Fit the ingress protection or IP washer, if required, onto the entry thread and screw the entry component into the junction box until hand tight. Using a spanner or wrench, tighten until resistance is felt, 1/4 to a 1/2 turn nominal. Place the back nut, middle nut and the reversible armour clamp or RAC over the cable, making sure that the ring for the ICG 653 Universal is in the correct orientation for the type of armour or braid being used. For the ICG 653 dedicated armour gland, the armour ring must be placed over the cable with the thickest part of the ring towards the back of the cable gland. Push the cable through the armour spigot and spread the armour by gently pulling it away from the inner sheath of the cable. A screwdriver may be required for larger sized cables. Remove the compound pot from the entry component and push the cable through the entry component locating the spigot. Locate the spigot under the armour or braid until the ends are against the shoulder of the armour spigot. Bring up the armour clamping ring and position over the armour or braid. Then bring up the middle nut and hand tighten onto the entry component. Finalize by tightening the middle nut by a further 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn with a spanner or wrench to make off the armour clamping assembly. Unscrew the middle nut from the entry component and visually inspect that the armour or braid has been effectively clamped between the armour spigot and the armour clamping ring. Remove the cable from the entry component. The make-off of the armour isn't required for the ICG 623 cable gland, as this cable gland is only suitable for use with non-armoured cables. Mix the compound found in the two plastic bags until they blend together into one solid colour with no streaks. Once mixed, apply to the conductors within 30 minutes, as after this time the compound will begin to stiffen as the curing process begins. Spread the cable conductors apart to enable the compound to be packed into the crotch of the cores. Close the conductors together and bind the ends with tape. Apply compound around and in between the cable conductors, extending no more than 35 mm up the cable. Ensure all voids and gaps are filled. Pass the compound pot over the conductors and push down until it engages on the spigot of the armour clamp. Remove all surplus compound from the top and flanges of the pot, making sure no excess is left, as this may impede the removal of the pot when the compound is fully cured for inspection. Pass the cable assembly through the entry component and locate the pot inside the entry. Bring up the middle nut, locate on the entry, and hand tighten. A handy tip is to apply the surplus compound onto the outer sheath of the cable in close proximity to the cable gland. This can be tested periodically to ensure the compound is hard before finalizing the termination into the equipment. Allow the compound to cure, then untighten the middle nut from the entry component to enable inspection. If necessary, the compound pot may be removed for inspection to ensure that the packing around the conductors is satisfactory. If required, gaps and voids can be repaired by the addition of further compound. The process of installing the compound for the ICG 623 is similar to that of the ICG 653 Universal and ICG 653 dedicated cable glands, except that the compound spigot must be held in position whilst the installation process is completed. Reassemble the middle nut and the compound pot into the entry component and tighten until hand tight. Using a spanner or wrench, tighten the middle nut onto the entry component a half to a full turn. Hand tighten the back nut onto the middle nut until a seal is formed around the outer cable sheath. Using one spanner or wrench, hold the middle nut in position whilst finalizing the tightening of the back nut by a further complete turn with another spanner or wrench. Complete the installation by pulling the deluge seal down onto the middle nut if applicable. The ICG 653 Universal, ICG 653 Dedicated or ICG 623 cable gland has now been correctly installed.